Good morning, Summiteers. It is truly the honor of my life that I have been able to be on this stage with you all for each of those 14 years. I can't thank Bill Armstrong, John Anderson, Don Sweeting, and Jeff Hunt, of course, more for that distinct privilege. Those of you who've been through this with me will know that I've got way too much content for too little time. So I've taken the liberty, at the risk of insulting your intelligence, of trying to really highlight in the PowerPoint I'm going to show you now what are the most important takeaways. We'll have the deck available for you as you wish to go through it at greater length, but I'm going to try to cover a lot of material very, very fast, and hopefully you'll get at least what's in the highlights. Let's go to the videotape, not the videotape, the show. Do I start it here? Okay, I guess I started it wrongly. Here we go. We're going to talk about China. We're also going to talk about its friends as the problem of our time. Why is that? Well, from the get-go, the Chinese Communist Party has both sought to have hegemony over the entire world and regarded us as the impediment to realizing that. Hence, we are their enemy. This I picked up on the web. It's a pithy quote from a guy that has informed Chinese strategy for millennia or two. I'm going to read it because I think you really need to take it all aboard. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. That's Sun Tzu. What the question arises now is, what do we know? Well, I'm going to suggest to you that too many of us, including in leadership, do not know that the Chinese Communist Party, not because we want it to be, but because of the reasons I've just mentioned, is our mortal enemy. It has, as a result of its activities, made us less prosperous, less free, and certainly less secure. And the two reasons are, one, the unrestricted warfare they have waged against us, and two, that they are aided and abetted in doing so by what they call friends, here in the United States as well as elsewhere around the world. We're trying to help address that with this book. I'm very proud to say that the woman on the screen is a native Coloradan, Dee Laugesen. I trust you're out there somewhere. She'll be with me signing books afterwards, so come see her. And Steve Bannon, of course, published the book as the first of his War Room books imprint. We're very proud of that association. We're trying to correct with the book some fundamental misunderstandings. The first is the truly diabolical nature of the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP. We're also trying to help elaborate on this phenomenon they call elite capture and the toll that it has taken. And most importantly, folks, what we must do about both of them. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. This is the sort of threshold point. Steve talks about it a lot on War Room, as do I. The nature of this enemy is not a political party or even a government. It is a transnational criminal organization, or TCO, if you will. It is far and away the most powerful and most dangerous in the history of the world. We hear a lot about cartels and so on being TCOs. None. And not Adolf Hitler. Not the Imperial Japanese, not the Soviets, came close. Why is that? Well, because this transnational criminal organization has gotten away with war crimes and crimes against humanity for decades. And we believe they must be prosecuted as such, at least in the court of public opinion. Let me start with the overarching point, the crimes against humanity. These photos don't begin to capture the magnitude of what they've done to, yes, the people they have enslaved, but also to their own people. since the Chinese Communist Party's revolutionary activities began, let alone when they came to power. To give you a sense of what they have done, just very quickly, again, highlights: forced abortion as a matter of state policy, industrial grade organ harvesting, the practice of genocide, most notably at the moment against Uyghurs, but it has been against Tibetans, it's been against Southern Mongolians, it's been against, again, many of their own people as well. I will just emphasize this because this phenomenon, the social credit system as they call it, gives the Chinese Communist Party the capacity to brutalize their own people and, yes, control and even murder them with an efficiency that Orwell could never have dreamt of. And what that means for us, we'll talk about it a little bit in a moment. To give you a sense of the scale of the toll that has been taken by these crimes against humanity, 100 million of their own people have been exterminated by the Chinese Communist Party. And sadly, folks, that doesn't even include those that they've murdered in the womb. And some say that estimate is off by about 100 million. It's a little dated, but that's the number the Chinese Communist Party itself has boasted of. Why this is so important is not just the scale of the moral and humanity travesty that this represents. Think about it. If they treat their own people this way, are they going to treat us better? I think not. Indeed, they have pursued a stealthy strategy for taking us down for decades, including, as this gentleman told it, through the use of a hide and bide strategy to win the Cold War that he decided was going to begin with the defeat of the Soviet Union by my old boss, Ronald Reagan. The technique for making this so successful is getting our help in doing it, while, of course, concealing the true malign intentions. In 1999, however, the Chinese Communist Party actually allowed to be published a book called Unrestricted Warfare that kind of put us on notice as to what on earth they were doing. Again, I'm just going to give you highlights. Elite capture, as they call it, I've mentioned already, a very important contributor to everything else, especially on Wall Street, where they have successfully migrated, by some estimates, between $3 and $6 trillion from our capital markets, much of it your money. Pension funds, mutual funds, index funds, exchange-traded funds, other investment vehicles that captured elites on Wall Street have sent their way, unbeknownst, by the way, to most American investors. They actually mentioned that biological warfare would be one of the techniques they would also use to defeat us without actually going to a kinetic war, a shooting war, if you will. These are the 8 charges after the first, crimes against humanity. I'll just highlight a couple of them. They are actually at war with us, being the first. They have captured much of America's elite, and they are using it to take us down. They have engaged, actually, in biological warfare. That's what that COVID-19 business was all about. Make no mistake about it. And not least, with the help of their friends, starting with the commander-in-chief of the United States military. They are taking down our armed forces, creating conditions under which they can now pursue, perhaps with impunity, but certainly with minimal cost, as they see it, the old-fashioned kind of warfare against us, the shooting war. The hide and bide thing sort of went over the side back in May of 2019. Again, too few of us are paying attention to recognize that when they say they're at people's war with us, that is what they say in the intelligence business is a clue. And they're deadly serious about it. So we have a list of 20 different items in the indictment. I hope you'll pick it up. I hope you'll share it with your congressional representatives and others, because we need the people of the United States to pull in behind the idea that we have to do something about this. We've got 20 specific ideas. I'll highlight a couple of them. First of all is just understand what I've shared with you already, that there is a war underway. Investigate Joe Biden and prosecute him for his crimes aiding and abetting the enemies of our nation and others who are doing the same, and remove them from office, by the way. Ladies and gentlemen, one takeaway: if we are, as I fear, as a result of all that I've just shared with you, on the cusp of a shooting war, it is inconceivable and certainly intolerable that we will have, as the leader of America's military, and by the way, the rest of our country, a man who is, as one of my colleagues, Sam Faddis, calls him, using the terminology of the trade in which Sam was a professional, undercover recruiting and running of assets for the CIA. He says Joe Biden is, quote, a controlled asset of the Chinese Communist Party. He can't be the leader of our country at a time of war like this. So, a key piece, hearkening back to what I saw and helped Ronald Reagan do, we need to delegitimize this enemy. The people of China are not our problem. Our mutual problem is the party that misrules them and seeks to destroy us, the Chinese Communist Party. That's where that transnational criminal organization bit can play, I think, an important role. There is one other item, and I don't have time to do justice to it, but I'd be happy to talk to you about it outside where we're signing books. And Dee Dee will be staying a bit longer than I, and she's all about this as well. We have another important line of attack that the Chinese Communist Party is engaged in to advance this goal of achieving the world hegemony that they believe is their rightful place, the center of the universe, the Middle Kingdom. It is weaponizing international organizations. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but what that means in the guise of global governance is basically world government run by the Chinese Communist Party. Don't take my word for it. Here's what Xi Jinping himself said just 2 months ago. With the founding of the Communist Party of China and after a century of struggle, our national humiliation has been erased, and the Chinese people have become the masters of their own destiny, by which he means the slaves of the Chinese communists setting their destiny. Then he went on. The Chinese nation's great revival is on an irreversible path. China will lead the reform of the global governance system. These are some examples of what they're doing as we speak with the World Health Organization, which they essentially run, as they do most international organizations these days. If any of those things don't suit you, and you had a taste of what they're like during that pandemic problem, that biological warfare attack where we adopted, at the insistence really of the World Health Organization, the China model, well, we need to get ourselves out of the World Health Organization now. The last thing, ladies and gentlemen, which is a particularly urgent priority, is we need to pray. We are in a spiritual warfare moment, unlike any in the history of the world, against an enemy that is not only more evil than any that has preceded it, but vastly more dangerous. With God's grace, we will be victorious. The question is, do we still deserve it? Do we still have it? Because if we don't, I think we surely are toast. So I encourage you to do as I do, and I think any sentient American patriot does, and that is pray to God for his grace in this critical moment to defeat the Chinese Communist Party and its friends. God bless you all.